At the same time, you describe yourself as being shy.
Yes, yes.
How could you want to get up and make speeches in front of people and be shy at the same time?
But the shyness came on me about the seventh grade, I think. I was not as shy in my early days. I had an unusual experience. A lot of people had it. When I was in the sixth grade, one day the principal walked in the sixth grade and called my name and five or six others, and that they called it that day irregular promotion. So about 1 month in the sixth grade, I went to the seventh grade, and psychologically it took me a while to recover. In the sixth grade, I was a leader. I was in charge of things, and I went to the seventh grade. If I was young already for the sixth grade, I finished high school at 16, finished grammar school at 12. So when I went to the seventh grade, I was a little bit overawed, I think, by being with this older crowd, and a certain shyness overtook me then, and I was not able to articulate myself in front of a class. And that shyness followed me through law school. And sometimes I wondered why I went to law school, because in class I had a hard time reciting. When they called on me to define a case or to illustrate, I stumbled and fell through it, and I wondered what in the world am I doing in law school, because I envisioned that I'd have to go before a jury.
Sure.
And that and when I finished eighth grade, they used to have what they call valedictorian and salutatorian, and valedictorian was first, so salutatorian was second in honors. I finished as salutatorian. They gave me a speech to read, and I stumbled and cried through that speech, And yet in high school, I was always an officer of my class. I was treasurer of my senior class and editor of the yearbook, but when it came to speaking to a group, I couldn't do it.
But you said a moment ago that you were a leader in the sixth grade. How did that leadership exhibit itself? I mean, what made you know that you were a leader?
Well, in some ways, I could help set the pace, behavioral patterns, the games we played, who would be in charge. And I was not a good athlete, so I substituted trying to run things for being a good athlete. If they played softball, they had a way of throwing a bat, and the man who had the last hole would pick the team. Well, you can count on Ben Hooks being the last one on the team. So usually I ended up as the umpire, or the referee, and I enjoyed the power of calling people out, and making the rules. And I guess kids have that innate sense of wanting to run something. At home, I had two younger sisters, and I had sort of charge of their life. I told them what to do and what not to do. And in school, first sixth grades, that's what I meant by being a leader. Just small things.
Sure.
If we were deciding on a class play, I would sort of lead in what play. If we were going to buy candy to sell to make money, I was the one who went to the candy store. The principal would call me and George Sattler, who later went to the UN, to go and get him a sandwich, or to go with him to the fair and arrange things. And but when I went to the seventh grade, I felt a certain shyness because of that certain transfer, and that stuck with me until I came back to Memphis to practice law, and I had what I call a miraculous delivery, which is difficult to explain to people who don't believe in God, who don't understand that type of thing. But when I was back practicing law and been there a month or two, somebody came and asked me if I'd speak at a church. I said, oh yes, I'll be glad to deliver the lay sermon that morning. The closer I got, the more I knew I couldn't do it. But I went on out there anyway, and I had developed something. I don't know what it was. I'd written it down. I look at it sometimes now. And finally they said, and we have a young lawyer this morning who's going to speak to us. And Julian, as sure as I'm sitting here, when I stood up, all my shyness, all of my problems went away. I spoke that morning. And since that time, I've spoken to 15, 20,000 at a time. I've been to the Republican National Convention, Democratic National Convention. I've spoken in so many places, and never again from that day have I felt any particular sense of shyness. I worry whether I'm going to do well, but I've never felt that. It was a miraculous deliverance. That's all I can say.